Hi everyone, I'm Sloan from SloanBella.com and I'm back with another channeled celebrity video. This one came to me totally from left field, really didn't focus on this woman in any way whatsoever. Familiar with the name, not necessarily familiar with her whole career. Some of her movies, like Carmen, I'm familiar with, but not overly. I wasn't a huge fangirl at the time, but I am a fangirl now. This is the best thing about doing this job that I have found, is being able to explore the lives of people that I know nothing about, wouldn't be meeting in my day-to-day life, regular life, not to mention they've already passed on, so I don't recall meeting them if I have, but actually being able to go in very subtle nuances as they show me the story of their lives. They show me the texture, the taste, the flavor, the energy, the mindset of the lives that they lived. And that's extraordinary for me. I found this woman to be absolutely fascinating, and I am now 100% a huge fan. And I'm talking about Dorothy Dandridge. I really didn't know much about her, and I was, of course, running up the hill early in the morning, probably like 5 in the dark, had my little phone on with the light, and all of a sudden I heard the name and I'm like, okay. And then I just started to imagine her. So she allowed me to imagine who she was. And while she put the layers of her personality over on me so that I could understand from internally how she was feeling. Dorothy Dandridge was born on November 9th, 1922. So she's from that early era of actresses in Hollywood, the ones that came from vaudeville into silent film, vaudeville, and talking films, and were kind of a combination of all of that. And she was, very interestingly, a double water sign, a Scorpio sun, a Cancer moon, and a Leo rising, also with Neptune in the first house. She had Moon and Pluto in the 12th, which gave her her intense mediumship abilities, which I'm quite sure she didn't know she had until she knew she had them. And I'm quite sure this is possibly what drove her insane in her life to a degree. She also had some other interesting things. Her Venus was retrograde, which means she was trying to get relationships right. I would love to know when anyone gets relationships right. And she also had a retrograde Uranus in the 8th house, which explained a lot to me as I started to feel the energy of her. When I looked her chart up, I was like, this is quite interesting. So when I started to pick up on her energy, she was this really rambunctious, spunky, mischievous kid with a big smile on her face. Okay, so she's showing me like she was a happy kid. For all intents and purposes, she was extremely happy. She loved her family, she loved her mother, and she loved her sister early on in her life. After about the age of 10, she wasn't so happy with the relationship between her mother and her. What I was picking up on Dorothy's mother, the intensity of the situation, was really a past life connection, and it was binding, it was controlling, it was burdensome. After the age of 10, Dorothy and her mother started to have actually karmic issues come into play. This is what she showed me. As much as she loved her mother, and as much as her mother actually unconsciously created Dorothy's career in the beginning, the mother, being a Pisces, being connected to all that water, and being placed in the 12th house of Dorothy's chart, what I was getting from Dorothy is the mother just kind of unconsciously went along with these urges she had, and I'm talking about following her own career path, following her own love life, not really focusing on her children, but focusing on herself. As a result of that, led Dorothy right through the door into her own career, which is amazing given the fact that we're told on the planet, you can't be selfish, you have to think of others. If Dorothy's mother had actually thought of other people, this is a recognition coming from Dorothy, then Dorothy would not be who she is today, who we know her as today. It was really it was an intense relationship between the two of them. And as Dorothy started to come into her womanhood and her attractiveness, and she had this real air about her. She was always fun though. She wanted to keep the harmony within the house, which is interesting. for a Scorpio, but it was that Cancer moon and that Leo rising that wanted to have fun, and she would do anything to have fun. She was known as the prankster in her neighborhood. She did all of these things. She's talking about being the entertainer she was as a child because she started very young, and she's talking about putting on her shoes and like being miserable backstage with everything that's going on back here, the people, the bosses, her mother, her mother's lover, which became her stepmother, because the mother, way ahead of her time, and I'm sure there were always gay people everywhere around the world, obviously, no matter what, but the mother in that time frame, being a black woman, taking a lover who was female, leaving the husband, taking the children kind of against the husband's will. That's one thing she was very sad about, is that she didn't get to know her father for who he was, but she does know him for who he is now. She's been able to pick up the energy, but what was really going on at the time is the connection between her and her father was actually done. It was actually ended at the time of her birth. She spent about 3 years in that cycle, but by the age of 4, she was out of that family unit, and it was supposed to be that way for her. She was supposed to learn to get her strength and structure without having a man around. However, having said that, she did have Venus retrograde, so she was going to pull men in all the time, and she was going to pull them in, and they were going to mess with her head, because that's what was going to happen, because it just happens on Earth. I don't know why it happens here. It just does. Anyway, she was backstage. She was showing me images of herself backstage, and she'd be getting ready. Okay. She's a kid, 7, 8, 9, right? And she's getting ready to go on stage with older people singing and dancing, younger people singing and dancing, her sister, groups of people, all this chaos. I'm hearing it in this tiny little room. Like, she's showing me literally a tiny room that's like the size around me, and there's people bunching up against her, people running behind her, people going here, there, and everywhere. And she's like, oh my God, I have to get out on stage. So I literally see her being shoved out onto stage, and then she would come out poised, and she would come out with a sense of self that was remarkable for a young girl. Like, she literally could not see that she was a black kid, and that her mother was a lesbian, and that she didn't have a father, and that they didn't have money. She did not see that. She literally was like, here I am, and I'm going to do my work. She intuitively was beyond powerful, okay? Her downfall was her heart. Other than that, she was pretty powerful. If you caught her and got her heart, then that's where she was weak at that point. But as far as performing goes, she had a presence, a magnanimous presence. And she showed me, like, before she would go out on stage, she'd be like a wet noodle backstage, okay? And again, it's very cramped. They all changed out. Like, it wouldn't go over well now with rights groups or whatever, because the men changed, the women changed, skinny fat people changed. Everybody was in the same room, little kids, big people, everybody just changing, dressing, and it was just chaotic. It reminds me of the little theaters in New York, the little off-Broadway theaters where everybody's crammed into, like, I don't know, some boxy back room. We don't really have that in Los Angeles, but back east you have a lot of that, and it's that texture of the theater when the crowd is out there waiting, the curtains are going to go up. Will you get out there on time? She never failed. She had remarkable poise for a young woman, and so did her sister. Actually, everybody around her did, and she was mentored. One thing that she had is she could intuitively draw people to her. Now, here's what I got. This is what she showed me. As she was working her way up career-wise in the entertainment industry, singing, dancing, trying to get into movies, Los Angeles, the moving to Los Angeles, all of that, she was showing me that people came to her. Okay, that's a weird thing to say. People came to her, and people were connected to her because they wanted to be healed by her. They wanted her energy on them because it was comforting to them. She didn't know that about herself, how empathic she was, how her energy radiated out like this. She just showed me just really lovely energy, very sad girl, but very lovely energy. Okay. So the essence of her soul radiated out. I almost feel like she shouldn't have been born on this planet. That's a weird thing to say, because she was, but I almost feel like she shouldn't have been born on this planet. And I feel like I feel like she didn't understand her intuitive side and her sensitivity to the world around her. She definitely had mediumship qualities. She could speak to the dead, but she didn't speak about this. It did run through her family, is what she told me, and it ran through the mother's, father's side of the family, but it was always kept quiet. It was kind of spoken about in the sense that if you have a question, go to this person and they will help you. They will help you answer it. And she had this tremendous sense of pride. Like she didn't need your help. She wasn't going to need your help. She could do it herself. Okay. So she was a strong ass woman with a weak emotional sensitivity that was hooked up intuitively. It's quite interesting. It's very creative, actually. Very, very creative. Like super creative. Anyway, and she was smart. And one thing she didn't like about herself, which is she was really beautiful. When I actually looked up her pictures, she was really beautiful, like actually really proportionately attractive. Her body was lovely. She was thin, she was curvy, she was sexy, she was all of those things. Of course, she was a Scorpio, but she was really attractive and she didn't care for that. She didn't care for that. She didn't see herself that way. She felt that her looks got in the way in her life. She wanted to make her mark in a really strong way. And she really felt that her looks stopped people from understanding who she was. It was like a block, okay? So when she looked at herself in the mirror, she was like, this is a block. Part of that had to do with the fact that she was black, okay? And there was, I mean, we're talking about segregation back then. We're talking about a woman who, through her own experiences, has voiced that she couldn't, in the casinos in Vegas, she couldn't swim in the pool, but she was the headlining act. That was also with Harry Belafonte there. I mean, really? What the hell is wrong with people? Because if you actually, I've always found it interesting because I've met racist people in my life, and, you know, older generations are taught certain things, and we've had a racist country and we have race wars and blah, blah, blah. But when you actually look at people's skin and you look at their face, if you put people side by side, regardless of the color of their skin, everything's the same. It's just like if you were to wipe the skin off, the people with the vitiligo or the people with the melasma the other way, where the skin gets darker or the skin gets lighter, they kind of look the same as the white and the dark people. So I never could understand it. And it really is very odd that it was used against people as a downfall, as if you could change your skin color, as if you could change your vagina, as if you could change, you know, the fact that you're 5'5". I mean, you can't change these things. So what are we fighting about it for? Like, there's no fight. There's no fight. We all incarnated here. There's no fight. She could never understand that. But even to further that, she really couldn't understand. She really could not understand her femininity causing all the problems that it did. And it caused problems for her in her childhood because her mother was a bit, neglectful of raising her and left it on the lover, the stepmother, whatever we're calling her. And you know this is going to cause problems because whether you're raised by two women, two men, a man and a woman, 65 people, whatever, wolves, it doesn't matter, whoever you're raised by, you know that whatever the personality of those people's are and how you respond to it, you're going to pull that in relationships. So she had a difficult time in her home because her looks were used against her with her mother's lover. And her mother was both negligent and selfishly focused. So her mother was a little bit of a narcissist and negligent, and basically everything that happened with Dorothy's looks within the home, okay? And it wasn't just women in the home, men in the home. There were quite a lot of sexual instances with her where she was taken advantage of or pushed back or shoved back because of her really attractive self. So this is a woman that's being abused in a way because she looks a certain way, which I know it happens, but I'm going to ask you people, I've said this for years. I've said this for years. I'm probably going to get a hate mail now, but honest to God, when people say, you know, looks are only skin deep, no, looks are a karmic gift, actually. So when you say that, you're discrediting people and degrading them because they're attractive, which is just as bad as degrading somebody because they're not attractive in your opinion, or because they don't look the way that you think that they should look. It's just as bad. Attractiveness is a karmic gift. When people are born with certain attributes, those are gifts that they've earned throughout lifetimes. So when people degrade attractiveness, they're basically saying to people that are considered attractive, you don't count because you're attractive. She was very aware of that, and it pissed her off actually, because she could not help how she looked. She kept telling me that, both with her skin color and her body and the way she was as a woman. She couldn't help the way she looked. She just couldn't help it. She's like, people blocked me every which way. Then here's the kicker, because she so badly had wanted her father in her life, but she couldn't cross that boundary with her mother. The mother set it up where she couldn't connect with her father, because if she did, it would offend the mother, which is really kind of parent alienation looking back on it. I wasn't there. Obviously, I wasn't there. Sorry, that's a stupid thing to say, but I wasn't there. But what happened is Dorothy wanted to connect with her father. She couldn't connect with her father because if she connected with her father, her mother would take offense. So there was an emotional blackmail going on over here because her mother was her caretaker. Keep that in mind. When the mother is the caretaker, how do you go against that? And the mother was in full-blown addiction mood, workaholic, neglectaholic, do whatever you want-aholic, focus on the money-aholic. And it turned out that Dorothy ended up supporting, like the man, okay, like the man, her entire family. This is what she ends up doing. This was not either uncommon with child actors. That's why they now have the Jackie Coogan Act, but I don't know that that even works, because we have actors out there like Britney Spears and Justin Bieber and everybody else whose parents have huge connections to how they spend their money. So I don't even know that the Jackie Coogan Act worked. For those of you that want to know about that, Google the Jackie Coogan Act. He was the childhood actor who basically was overworked. His parents spent his money, aka Corey Feldman, and he put the act in where the money would have to go into the trust till the kid was 18, but the parents can control the trust. It's really weird. Or they can spend the money before it goes into a trust, etc., etc. But getting back to Dorothy, Dorothy really wanted to connect with her father. She dreamt about this. She told me about writing in journals. She told me about wanting to know if her father wanted to love her. She was under the impression that her father wanted nothing to do with her because he thought that she was not his. That's what the mother said, okay? That's what she said. That's what she said her mother said. So the kids were kind of pushed to the side where she wanted her dad's attention and couldn't understand. Now, here's what I will say. As a mother, if you took my kids from me, I would do anything and everything I could. I would do whatever it took so that I would be in my kids' lives, period, okay? I just would do that. I don't understand why her father just didn't track down the wife and take his kids back. That I don't understand, but it is common for men to kind of back out of those relationships with crazy ass women. So it does go on through history. The men usually will wait till the woman is older and till the children are older and then wait to see if the child comes back. It's kind of a passive way. Like, I do find it passive, but then the men aren't the ones that birth the children. So maybe they don't have the same connection. I don't know. But she wanted her father's attention, but she got her first husband's attention, who was one of the stage dancers in a group, in a boy group, like she was in a girl group, and she got married really young. And I'm seeing a sense of relief. She's actually showing me that getting married for her and the prospect of family and children was what she wanted. Like, if she could have a family, if she could have children, she would give up show business altogether. She would give up everything. That's what she wanted. She wanted to be a housewife. She wanted to wake up in the morning. She wanted to change diapers. She wanted to garden. She wanted to go to the market. She wanted a basket on her arm. She's showing me that. She wanted to, seriously, she wanted to get, like, pick the fruit fresh and pick the vegetables fresh. She wanted, quote, a simple life. Her life blew up like a rocket ship at that time. Now, it was a karmic thing for her, but I'm sure if anybody knows the story of her, they know the story that she was waiting for her husband. I was deeply saddened by this because she took it so personally, and the guilt that would come on to you after this happening, after the birth of a child, where your actions set into motion behaviors for the child that were karmically, I don't know what, but karmically devastating. What happened is she was waiting to give birth, well, thought she was in labor, and her husband, who was negligent like her mother and absent like her father, as in was not in the vicinity at the time that she started going to labor, She waited. She wanted to be with him, which is very understandable. She wanted to connect with him during the birth process and waited, and then couldn't wait anymore, gave birth to the baby. Everything was good until they found out the baby didn't have enough oxygen. So the karma of that was so intense for her and so devastating that it affected her, and it would affect me and it would affect you if you gave birth to a baby like this, realizing if you'd gone to the hospital 5 hours earlier, this might not have happened. No one would know for sure, obviously, but this affected her intensely. After the experience of learning about her daughter being brain and oxygen deprived, or oxygen deprived causing brain damage, which was basically mental retardation, this was devastating to her, as it would be to you, to me, to anybody. Her husband at the time actually couldn't handle it, so he ignored it, is what I'm hearing. Now, what I do see from him on the other side is I see that he prays all the time. He prays for forgiveness. He prayed to her for forgiveness. And believe it or not, it's really interesting because the two of them, I've got to explain this, but the two of them, I can't really say it right now, but I'm trying to say it. They kind of crossed in and out of lifetimes after this life, after their life as husband and wife at different times. But he was able to let her know on a soul level that he took responsibility for what he did. She shouldered that burden, and it was a burden for her. There was not a second it was out of her mind. That's a huge thing. Like, you can't enjoy your life. People say just get over it, but she couldn't. And she wasn't actually burdened by it for the reasons you would think, the reasons that she didn't have a child that would be normal, go to kindergarten, get married, this kind of thing. She was burdened from it because she felt like she let her daughter down. She felt like it was all her own doing, and the guilt was consumptive for her. The guilt was put on her by her husband as well, because he was negligent in the fact that he didn't step forward to be with her by her side, especially in the last, month when you're pregnant. Like, you could go into labor at any time, and often will. And but what I'm seeing from the daughter, what I see from the energy between the mother and daughter, is this was arranged. And I'm going to say it this way. It feels like Dorothy's daughter came to her in this life as an act of love, so that Dorothy could raise her, and so that Dorothy would know that she was loved unconditionally from the soul that was her daughter. It was actually a gift to her. Doesn't sound like a gift with the amount of trouble it caused, but it was actually a gift for her. And that gift was the essence of this child that was the soul, and the gift for her to love herself in spite of external circumstances. In other words, shit happens, and this child offered herself through pregnancy, soul, so that Dorothy could actually learn to accept the fact that not everything goes the way that we think or the way that it's planned, and that this accident, which was actually scripted prior to birth, really, it was scripted, and it was more of the father's karma than it was Dorothy's, even though Dorothy had to deal with it. See, I don't understand karma when I'm getting that. I really don't. I do not understand it, okay? So the energy around Dorothy, and this is really interesting because I haven't said this yet, okay? So I started to feel Dorothy's energy, as I said, and then I realized it wasn't Dorothy's energy I was feeling. It was another energy of a female relative that I saw on the other side, telling me about Dorothy's energy. This is where it gets interesting for me. I thought the whole time I was talking to Dorothy, this woman looked very much like her. This woman made me feel like her. This woman put the thoughts into me as if she was Dorothy. This was a spirit, a soul. She wanted me to hear the story before I made a judgment about where Dorothy went or what happened. She wanted me to feel the texture of Dorothy, and she was able to relay this information to me as accurately as it could be, which was kind of interesting because I really thought I was talking to Dorothy. Okay, so jump ahead through Dorothy's life. She has all these experiences with all of these men and all of these fucked up issues where the white man, it was like Otto Preminger, it was like Peter Lawford, it was like some other business dude at the end of her life. All of these fucked up, wealthy white men, older, daddy issues. Not copping to that one here, but anyway, the daddy issues, right? The older white guy will save me. He must know more than me, which can be true in the case of the director, because the director is going to want to be like a Svengali and he's going to want to mold his actress. That's not uncommon. The younger woman, older man thing's not uncommon. However, what was the problem with this is it was triggering Dorothy to accept herself as a black woman while being rejected in this country by these men. I know you're asking why she was rejected. I'm feeling the energy of the relationship where it's sexual, it's passionate, it's all of those things, but yet it's hidden. It's hidden. It's hidden. It's her trying to get the attention of, and it's never working. It's not working. It doesn't work. She tries to do it, but she doesn't get what she needs. So her needs are not being fulfilled. Now she has this empathetic, I really love this woman's energy. Like, I don't say that often, but I really loved her energy and I find her quite intoxicating actually. But I wasn't really talking to her. So it's kind of interesting. I'll get into that. Anyhow, what happened with Dorothy is I feel she was very empathic. I feel like she was straight out of mediumship ability. I feel like she was intuitive, psychic. She could look at somebody, she could know, she would hear it, she could feel it. And I feel like she was driven fucking crazy from the stuff around her peripherally. Because how do you live on a planet when you're a creative, empathic person and you are absorbed into your characters, Neptune in the first house, you're absorbed like a chameleon into your characters. You play them, you play the energies of people, you are with people whose energies you meld into. Where do you stop? Where do they begin? Where do you begin? Who are you? This is what I was feeling from her. I was very confused at this point. And then I started to see the day that she died, okay? She was used by men. She was used by women. She was used by everybody. She was a marketing whatever, okay? So she was somebody who was marketed. There were good people that wanted her to excel. There were people who truly loved her. And there were people who wanted her to excel, okay? However, it was a little too late for her. I'm seeing the day in which she died. I was being shown, okay, so my head is really foggy. My head is like Swiss cheese fog in the morning. It's like the British Moors. I don't know why I want to say that. It's like the Hound of the Baskerville. That's what I'm thinking in my head. What the hell did that come from? I just thought that right now. I'm like, wait, where did that come from? That's like a Sherlock Holmes thing. Don't know what that has to do with anything. Anyway, it's like the visual of that, okay? Her head was like that in the inside. I feel like she's so fucking tired. Like she's just like, I'm fed up. It's interesting. She doesn't want to kill herself, but she doesn't give a shit. So she's like, I don't really give a shit if I die, but I'm not going to purposely try to die. I'm just going to be a little bit reckless and I'm not going to pay attention. Truth is, she did have some failing health at the time, even though she didn't really acknowledge this. She was trying to take care of it, but at the same time, she didn't really care enough to stop doing what she was doing. So she was putting herself in physical danger with taking these pills and drinking and doing this kind of thing. And I see her, but what I get is this blinding fucking headache, okay? So I almost feel, and she was quite shocked, quite shocked when she died. I'm being shown this. I'm seeing her body fall to the ground. I'm seeing her knees turn sideways. I'm seeing her body kind of like this to the side. She literally dropped down into the side, okay? Lucky she didn't smash her face. She's such a pretty face. But she kind of fell to the side and there she lay. I think she could have been resuscitated had somebody seen her or like come looking for her sooner. Also, part of the reason she died was this crippling anxiety. Like, oh my God, I have such anxiety. I can't go out in public. I can't have these people look at me. That's her psychic side. What happens to psychic mediums, psychic people, intuitive people, sensitives, empaths, however you want to word it, is we will shut off at times because it's way, way too much to go around people. It's like it's like you're a live wire and you can feel everything and you're like, whoa, I don't want to feel that person's energy. It happens quite a bit. She had this crippling anxiety around her, didn't want to feel the people is what I'm hearing, okay? Didn't want to feel the people, didn't want to connect to that energy. Okay, so she's probably taking some anxiety medicine, some antidepressant medicine, some booze, I don't know, whatever else, aspirin, Advil, it wasn't around then, but whatever. She's taking a bunch of shit. I don't really see what she's taking, but I see her fall down and she's not really living anywhere good or bad or whatever. It's kind of average, okay? She's just kind of average. And she's like, I am terrified. It's almost like this. It's like when you try to get a little kid to go to school and they don't want to go to school. If you've ever tried to do that, try to get a 6-year-old to get in the car to go to school when they don't want to go. That's what she was. She was like, I am not doing this. Something about her on a soul level recognized the ending of karma right then and there. Like this was the end of a karmic cycle for her. She cut it off herself. Now we are told we have free will, and I believe this within the context of fated events in our life. So within the context of certain fated events, I believe we have free will. But what I'm seeing with Dorothy, and this is fucking amazing, okay? Well, I don't know if it's amazing that she died, but I'm seeing that she died. And she died, boom, hit the ground, and she could have been resuscitated within 20 minutes, but it took longer and she died, okay? So she was unconscious. She stopped breathing. She kind of threw up and that was that, okay? Like she kind of aspirated a bit and that was the end of that. Now, jump ahead. So I'm on my run and I'm just like, whoever the woman is that's talking to me that isn't Dorothy, because she's reincarnated back. Okay, so here's what we have. And I have to actually look at the date. Yeah, it was September 8th, 1965, okay? She died September 8th, 1965. I had to look at the date. I wrote that down because I wasn't born yet at that time. Thank God. Anyway, she died in that time frame. That's the day that they found her dead. What I get, and I didn't get this in the beginning because I thought I was talking to Dorothy. They trick me sometimes, but she wanted me to feel whoever this was, and I'm still not clear, but she looked like Dorothy or took on the shape of Dorothy. Sometimes there's keepers of information on the other side, and the reason I can't get through to them is they will come through with the information, and if I'm not quick enough to pick that up, I'll kind of blur it together. Keep in mind I'm running and it's dark, and I'm also trying to keep on track with where I'm going. But here's the kicker. I immediately, and I know this is probably something that some of you figure, but I freaking immediately flashed to Halle Berry, August 14th, 1966, standing up with her Oscar, and I was like, shit, Dorothy, who got Oscar nominated as the first Black woman, and Halle Berry, who received the Oscar as a Black woman. This is one and the same on a soul level. This is one in the same. Halle Berry is Dorothy Dandridge, or Dorothy Dandridge is Halle Berry, or the soul is one and the same. What is this? Oh my God, it gave me such goosebumps. It's giving me goosebumps now. I am not one to say that. I've had 2 videos where I've said that, but it was so interesting because as I was doing Marilyn's video, it was making sense to me what this was about. But anyway, Halle Berry came back on the desire line to complete the lifetime which she stepped out of early, probably recognizing on the other side that she shouldn't have stepped out of it. And I think she may not have meant to have the outcome happen that way. Keep in mind, if you take drugs, it's not an accident. You're taking the fucking drugs. Therefore, it is intentional, but the outcome is what's accidental, not you taking the drugs. But having said that, this was what was so extraordinary. Okay, figure there's Dorothy Dandridge trying to win an Oscar. She's nominated as a Black actress, but they're not going to give it to her because I think that year Grace Kelly won. Grace Kelly's like the epitome of the white chick, you know, royalty, whatever. She met a really traumatic demise too. But there's Dorothy Dandridge and she's like up there. She's nominated. She's valued. Her sense of self is elevated because of this. Then when you think about it, Halle Berry, okay, we've got Sun and Moon in Leo, Taurus rising, is the first African-American woman to win an Oscar. Desire line. Desire line. Dorothy Dandridge died with the desire line to accomplish a goal. Remember that. In this life, if you are unable to complete something, unable to find something, unable to accomplish something, you will come back on the desire line. Halle Berry literally incarnated back within a year, okay, so 1965 September, and in just under a year, in comes little Halle Berry coming in as a double Leo, ready to kick some ass with a desire to be an actress. Like, she's going to do it. That's why the door opened for her. She was given the gift of accomplishing it on a soul level. I know that Halle played Dorothy Dandridge in the movie, and she was the obvious choice. This is what was so crazy when I was running. I got that she was playing herself, and she freaking knew it. She knew that she was playing herself from a past life. That is amazing. That was extraordinary. And I was like, holy shit. I have never looked at things this way before. And it was truly enlightening to me that a soul, I know they can come back. I know they can choose to come back rather quickly. I've seen it in my personal work. But this was extraordinary. Here is this young woman going up on stage to collect an Oscar, where the soul has continued the journey in a series of lifetimes on the desire line, and she completed it. Oh my God, right? Like, I was like, this is amazing. I don't know how I got on that tangent, but I was like, so for Dorothy Dandridge, she has taught me that sometimes we can exit a lifetime, come right back in. I'm not saying we should, and I don't know how to not do that, but she came right back in, and she was able to accomplish what she couldn't in the past life, and she, in this life, played herself in that life. That's fucking amazing. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. This was like thrilling for me to do, and I have no idea why. I've just got like a huge smile on my face. It actually made me really happy when I understood and felt the context of Dorothy Dandridge and where she went. I was no longer sad for her. And once again, my name is Sloan from SloanBella.com.